Hey guys, this is LoveTalk Lagos. We're a bunch of friends who, whenever we meet up, we end up talking about relationships. So we're like, you know what? Let's start a podcast. My name is Peter. I'm a media consultant.
My name is Ifeoma. I'm a on-air, on-TV personality.
And I'm Ifeoma. I'm an entrepreneur.
Okuns.
Period. Period.
Just Okuns. So yeah, I mean, today we're going to talk about something that really shouldn't be. I personally believe should not be an issue in 2021, really, and it's this tribalism in terms of like relationships, right? Because in today, in this day and age, you still find people saying, "Okay, who are you dating? Ekene, Ekene, isn't that an Igbo person?" All those type of things. So I'm like, I feel that we should have passed that by now. Like, we're not having neighboring village fighting. So, do you think it's ever going to go away? And do you feel it's still a thing? Because I think it is still a thing.
Uh, yeah, I think it'll always be a thing. It's never gonna go away because I don't think humans like differences very much. We are more attracted to commonalities. So, um, I don't think it will ever go away. I don't, honestly speaking, this might sound weird, but I'm not completely against being cautious about engaging with a different culture or a different background. I don't, I think it's important to know where the person is from. Although you shouldn't really judge and make a completely veto decision on someone because of where they're from, but it has a lot to do with it. So if I see that somebody is Yoruba, from the little I know that they're very big on respect. It will not make sense if I'm somebody that doesn't value respect and I want to engage with a Yoruba person. If I don't value like greeting the parents with the way they like and all of that, it will kind of be weird. I don't know. So in my opinion, I feel like there are some cultures that I would hesitate to engage in. Not that I can't even think of any right now in terms of tribes, but there are some cultures that I've heard of. For example, maybe the ones who don't like their women working, or they, yeah, you cut your hair when the person dies, or you're not supposed to own properties. I know there's I've heard of even some in Yorubas and Igbos as well. So I know there are subcultures within those cultures. I don't really know exactly which ones, but you see stuff like that. I'm gonna get a bit more wary as to like just jumping into a relationship with somebody like that.
Okay, so you ask the person, like, in your relationship, am I going to cut my hair if you die before me? Are those
I'm not
part of the
gonna
questions
ask,
you're
but
going to?
there's some things that are already common, right? I'm not gonna ask, but if I know that's what they do in their culture, then that's a hesitant. I will ask, is it something you practice? If I heard about it.
I actually have a different opinion just because I feel like if from the differences that you're speaking about, there's nothing wrong with it. I believe that you can go into a relationship with someone that's more different from you. Like, they don't have to come from your culture, they don't have to come from your race. You can do that as long as you have a clear understanding as to what is necessary. But I also believe that love is like one of the most important things, and all the other things are secondary. And if you really love someone, you'd be able to do more to make them comfortable, just as in, because there's basic humanity. And obviously, yes, maybe Yoruba people may be like really in depth in respect, but I'm sure you can greet their parents and you don't have to lie down or kneel down and do all of that, but just be respectful. It doesn't have to. I think maybe when we think about it, a lot of the times we tend to think of the extremes as opposed to just the basic minimum of, oh, respect. Everyone loves respect, so I don't believe there's anyone that loves respect more than.
But in Yoruba culture, there are different. There's the dobale one. There's the what do they call that one? The
Dobale is what I know.
there's one that the girls do as well, and you must do it for every single person at an event as a woman.
Well, it's not every single person. But then again, I'm actually talking about extreme moments, not casual moments. If it's for casuals, that's why we still see intercultural relationships happen, because they've been able to obviously function together. But there are some relationships that cannot function because they are extreme about their culture, and the person that's outside of that culture has a problem with it. That has happened many times, where people would love each other but can't be in a relationship because of extremities. That's a real thing. So it's not that I'm saying that I'm not against it. And then the idea of also saying that love is enough, I don't think so. I don't think love is enough, is all that you need if everything else will be rosy dozy. I think family influence on a relationship is very strong. If you have support, if you don't have support, can play a huge part in your relationship. And if it depends on the person as well, like if the person isn't doing enough to protect you from their family and their some weird cultures and all that, the pressure becomes a bit much, and the relationship might not survive because the cultural differences are a lot. So I mean, obviously I'm all for like love and stuff. Like I myself have been in intercultural, interracial, all sorts of interrelationships, but that doesn't mean that I'm naive to the idea that sometimes it might not work because the differences are too much.
I also want to have a separate opinion that maybe you're coming at it from the fact that a lot of the times we've seen cases where it's mostly the women that have to compromise though, as opposed to a guy. So it'll even be interesting because I know that even when we talk about all these things, if it was a girl that is coming to a place where there's more extreme in their culture, I feel like she has a high pedestal. She's put on a very high pedestal. But if the reverse is the case, where it's the girl's family and then the guy is coming into a more extreme difference, the guy gets a lot of passes, maybe just because of the fact that it's a man's world and we women just live in it, maybe. But I'd like to get a guy's perspective because I feel that that
Yeah.
is really what happens in this case.
Okuns.
I don't know what to say, man.
To be honest, I can't think of a situation of anybody I know personally where they married into a culture in this Nigeria and then they had to succumb to the woman's culture. You know,
Oh,
it's
right.
almost
Okay.
always
The
that
other
the
way
woman
around.
is marrying into my family, so and then that's now where the whole in-law issue comes because the mother is like, obviously she's obviously protective at first, and then the baby is now trying to not adhere to culture. So there's already the usual mother-in-law friction plus the whole
But you know, to
cultural
some
friction.
extent too, in most cases, I don't know of before, but now it looks like, I mean, despite the marrying and all, the man still somewhat makes his life revolve around his woman. Take for example my family or yours. Our brothers-in-law always come to visit. It may be the same for others, but I mean, and in most cases, so it's like, despite everything that's, despite all this, all of you have said, after the marriage has happened, and of course you guys have the understanding, to some extent, the man still has his world revolving around his woman.
Well, a healthy relationship that has two different backgrounds, I think you're supposed to infuse each other's cultures. That's the ideal. If I'm Igbo and my husband is Yoruba, my boyfriend is Yoruba, I think the ideal situation is that you adopt mine and I adopt yours as well. Especially the good parts, right? Like I know every culture has a really strong thing going for them and the other one and all of that. We can infuse and make our own little culture thing. There's some aspects of marriage that I think the man will really have to come into the woman's culture, and there's some aspects of marriage that the woman will have to go into the other. Yes, there's an imbalance, and I like that you brought that conversation up really about genders and all of that. But what I've seen, what I've noticed is that when it's the marriage time, it looks like the woman is entering the man's world. But I think in their homes, when that marriage actually starts, the woman actually has more control because the children are raised in the style of culture that she's from, and all of that. So I think that, I don't know, I think there's times when yeah, you see like the power change hands from male and female genders. But yeah, I've also seen extreme cases where the woman completely forgets who she is, her identity, her culture, and goes away from that. I had a friend who we were having a conversation, and he said, "Oh, I asked him, oh, where are you from?" He said, "Oh, I'm Igbo, but." I was like, "Oh, were you born in Nigeria?" I said, "No, I was born in Cameroon." I'm like, "Oh, really?" He said, "Yeah, I'm from Cameroon as well. My mom's from Cameroon." I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting. So you guys go off and such." He said he's never been. So for me, I mean, I don't want to judge too much because I don't know what's going on, but that sounds like somebody that has given up a huge part of her identity. Like, it's crazy that you have children with a man, and he's in his 20s, late 20s, 26 years old. So I've given birth, and he's not the firstborn. So I've given birth to for this guy for over 26 years, and I've never taken my children to where I'm from. That's insane, okay? That is insane to me. You cannot say that person doesn't have a completely unfair power dynamics going on in terms of cultural differences, because they're Igbos, they're not Cameroonian anyway.
There's also it could also be a timing thing, but Cameroon is close because I have a friend. His mom is from Guyana and his dad is Edo, and I mean this dude is like 21 years and for since he was they got married in Nigeria. They had their kids in Nigeria, and the man just decided to relocate to Guyana last year. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now, of course, like beginning of last year, he decided to relocate to Guyana. Now, but his wife has not gone to Guyana in 20 years. You get what I'm saying? Now, obviously, the children are still schooling in Nigeria, but the man has chosen to live there. So, to some extent, now who knows? Maybe his Guyana is going to die, or maybe he may decide to spend another 20 years or something before if he decides to say, okay, I will come back.
It's interesting that you bring that up because it's almost like we can almost use the recent happenings of Harry and Meghan almost to, it speaks to this topic even more so than ever. And it was a case of, we all know her story and their story, where this lovely girl marries into the royal family and then she is supposed to uphold all the things royal, and she struggles because I have a feeling one of the reasons why she even would have struggled the most is because in her own right, she was a celebrity and she had her own identity, which is very strong, and she had things she was passionate about. And then she comes into this family where they expect her to be less of who she is just to be able to fit in. And I love the fact that she did try that. And I think, to be honest, that's one of the reasons why Harry was able to make the decision to actually leave the royal family and go to America or go to Canada. I think they first went to Canada and then went to America. For her, just because he saw firsthand how she tried to fit in. But he also saw how she was, like, from the get-go, she was almost... They found every lie possible to say about her, not even taking into consideration all the things she had to give up, all the things she had to change of herself, how she even had to learn to speak in a different way just to fit in. And they almost like took all those and said it's not enough. So at that point, he saw clearly, like, oh, if I really love this person, I should be able to at least step away from some of it just to give her the room to like grow and be in her own element while they try and figure out what the future is going to hold. Because I know that at some point they're actually going to go back to the UK.
You think so?
Yes, I do believe that, but I feel like he wants to give her the opportunity to almost like grow, especially because of the fact that they didn't actually welcome her as much as he would have expected. So he wants that to give her the space to grow and nurture and be stronger, so that when they do go back, almost like even what happened to his father, where he went back to his former lover, they had said, oh, you cannot marry a divorcee. But after years and time has now passed, he was able to go back and actually marry her.
Yeah.
Just because now time has passed and it's no longer relevant. So I believe that maybe taking time away will now allow things to happen such that they're able to eventually come back, and it'll be a different scenario because now she'll have kids, her kids will grow, and then she'll be a woman in her own self, and no one at that point will care about her so much because there's by then maybe Prince William's kids are now grown, and those are now going to be the people that they would have to focus on. I just feel that.
I hope so. It's a very positive way of looking at it. I really hope so, because even the example that you gave is the other man. What's his name? The man that wants to marry a divorcee. Prince Charles is part of their family, not the other way around. If that makes sense. Like Prince Charles is actual royal blood, and he's a man. So those two things make it very different for Meghan's story. But I'm honestly, I'm going to tap into that faith and say that it is a possibility that even the fact that they've been able to make that stance, because I'm a strong believer of the idea that the world will adjust if you're serious about it. And I've seen that too many times. Like I've had instances in my life where even my family will say, okay, if I ever do this thing, then we're done with you, and and if I really want to do it, I'll do what I want to do. And after a while, when they see that this girl is not giving him, the world adjusts. Slowly but surely, they start to see ways to live with it and stuff. So I hope that happens for them. But I like the Meghan and Harry mix into the conversation. I would say though that that's something I don't like about people who hold on to cultures too dearly. And that for me applies to anybody. The British family as an institution, Igbos, Yorubas, or any household that I'm going to engage with romantically. I don't want someone who's too extreme about their cultures. Like, your culture should be a guideline, not a law set in stone. So if it worked for you 5 years ago, it's worked for you all your life, and it not work for me now, we should still be able to adjust it. We should still be able to adjust that culture, right? Even if you've always done that, because people are different and people evolve and all of that. So anyone who's too hell-bent about anything, I find it a bit closed-minded. Like, you have to, let's say, for example, they used to take you up to, so I know they do that in Nigeria. Is it Nigeria or, okay, I don't know. But in South Africa, I can think of a culture, the Dembes. When you're about to get married, they will take the woman up into some place and then feed her, pump her out.
The Calabar people do that as well in Cross River. That culture.
House.
Yes.
That's what it's called.
The
Yes.
fattening house.
And even in the Dembe's house, they teach them how to have sex. They'll teach them styles. They'll teach them how to wind their way. Like, a lot of things. Even the guys too, they take them out into the bush, but the men don't really talk as much as to what that entails. But I know it's also, people are actually trying to cramp down on that because it's beginning to be borderline illegal. Maybe they hurt them or something like that. I don't know. But you see, those type of things, maybe it's worked for you all your entire life and all your family's generation. But me, if I don't want to go to any mountain anywhere, I'm expecting that my husband to be able to say, well, my wife isn't going or whatever. So let's just keep it open-minded.
Well, like, how I see it is, like, initially, even with the, if you look at the royal wedding, they allowed her invite, it's not even allowed her, because her wedding as well, so she could invite, anyone she wanted. So it was almost like any black celebrity who was, like, high enough was there, right? So I saw it as them saying, okay, yes, this is what you have to do to appease this person. After you marry and she comes into the family, then she'll be appeasing us basically for the rest of her life, right?
Yeah.
I say that because it's similar to here. When you're doing your child wedding, it's always in the woman's village, more often than not, right?
Yeah.
You go to the woman's village, is her culture. In fact, sometimes you even wear their own garments first before they'll change into yours. So it's like, okay, I'm coming here to pluck a flower, and that is why I'm abiding by this. But it's almost like a goodbye to the woman's culture for her, right? So for Meghan, at that point, that wedding was, okay, goodbye to the blackness, right? So you will allow her, invite everybody, Oprah Winfrey, all your black people, anyone, just come. After this celebration, you're saying bye-bye to this life, and you're adopting full-on royal life. The same way Nigerian women are expected to say goodbye to their cultures at that point. And then from the marriage now, it's now about the man's culture, right? When people come to your house now, they can now start criticizing you based on the man's culture, because it's like, okay, we've done your own, we've carried you, we've paid your dowry. right? Which is another thing. This whole thing of bride price.
We need a whole episode for that one.
Because like
Why? Why do you do that?
you bought this person now.
Basically.
So now the person has to adhere to
Your rules.
your culture, your rules. Like, what is this intermingling of cultures? No, it's not like, because the woman does not pay to marry the man. The man pays to marry the woman. This is how the mindset is. So why should you have a problem?
Perpetrates.
Like that in India.
Yes, it is.
Where
Like
the
that.
The
woman
woman
actually
pays the
pays.
entire wedding and everything. Yeah.
She
So,
pays dowry as well.
I mean, that's why I want to marry an Indian, but yeah.
But you
Wow.
see, people usually argue that as a strong point to say that men, it's just really a man's world, whether you pay dowry or not, because Indians still suffer greatly from gender inequalities, and the men are still rubbish to them, even in marriage, and they're the ones that imagine paying for a man to come into your home and
Let's just come and
rubbish
abuse you.
So it's wild.
What would you call it?
No. I mean, you're right. Said abuse you. I can't imagine. After you have,
Yeah, but I mean, do you think? So the thing is now, like, that's bride price part. Do you guys think that thing should be just abolished, or do you think
Absolutely
because
not.
of tradition it should stay?
Absolutely not. You see, the thing is, some of our cultures are really beautiful. It's just that people can abuse it. If you are a decent man, with decent intentions, you can see that as a gift to say thank you. Thank you to this family that, especially if you work in Nigeria where you know how the system runs, that this person is really going to be part of my family, and she's really not going to have an identity as much. Like, couples are aware of that, especially like new age couples. They are aware of how the system works. They know that their wives are going to be limited, even if that's not their intention. They can protect them as much as possible, but the society that we live in still exists, whether or not you both are feminists or whatever. So you can see that as a goodwill, as a good deed to say thank you to this person. She's going to come into my house, make a home, raise my children, and all of that. And most couples that I see now, they actually pay. Both of them actually pay bride price, sort of. Like, you see, women's family putting a huge chunk of money out to support the couple's wedding, support the couple's future. That's not limited to the man anymore. Do you understand what I mean? Like, I've seen heaps of families come together to do the wedding together.
Doesn't that depend on the socio-economic status of the people getting married?
Yes, exactly. So imagine now if I marry somebody who is in a lower socioeconomic class than I'm the woman who pay for that wedding.
No, they will
So
not
it's-
see that man will not even allow you to. It's an ego thing when it comes to a lot of us men in lower socioeconomic statuses, right? You know, as a man, there are some things you have to do as a man, right? And if a woman comes and even you suggesting it, they can even see it as an insult or you trying to undermine them.
Bobby,
Right.
it's a day. That movie, for example.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's synonymous to what you're saying.
So it's even if at that point it's her day.
The guy went to I mean schooled abroad where he met a rich girl, and of course he came from humble beginnings, and he raised more money for something he was meant to use to do in a business, and then he saw how rich the girl was when they came back to Nigeria, and he offered to pay the entire bill for the wedding. And even though the girl's dad asked him whether he needed some support, and he said no, but of course he did. But yeah, that was really what it is.
So I don't know what's up with men are not taking support. I don't get it.
So it's another look. It's I think it's partly beside the whole ego part. It's partly ammunition because you get some people, especially like not in Lagos. I don't say I mean the villages, right? Where they're like, upon all the bride price or the cow I sent to your family, the bride price I paid for. It's almost like you're now going to pay for all those things for the rest of your life in servitude, because they can always pull it up on you, right? So if from the beginning it's like, oh, we are going to go 50-50 on whatever, in our culture it's not seen very manly to share those kind of responsibilities, especially at that stage. It's like you're the one that saw her, you're the one that chose her, You're the one that's
You see,
carrying
that's
her from our
bullshit. You
house.
see, it's
That is
bullshit.
how
It's bullshit
we
because if you cannot take
interpret all
50,
these
if you
things.
cannot take 50-50, then that's part of it. Just because it's not as harmful as other patriarchal ideas doesn't mean that it's still not harmful. You should still be able to do 50-50 with your wife. Because what that means is that if you marry someone who is higher than you financially, she is still limited to function and perform and live in your box, because if you go out of you the one that you can afford, then your ego will shake. Is that what you're saying?
That's the situation culturally in this country,
But
unfortunately.
the way she's also looking at it is modern women ideology. I know right now, like the people who will be listening to this, if they are even going to be Nigerian females, there are lots of people that are delusional. Like they'll be like, why is this girl even talking like this? The man should cover everything. Man came to the world to suffer. The women came here to bear kids for him and take care of the man. So practically, all her burden should be bared on the man. You understand what I'm saying? So I mean, there are still people like that to today, even though they are still under 20 that think like that. So I mean, I like the way she's thinking, but let's be realistic here. This is not a liberalistic point of view where we want to see things the way they are supposed to be rather than the way they are. So yeah, we're still going to have that. Continue.
I'm also curious to know how do you like what success rate do you think there is when it comes to different tribes actually coming together in relationship and eventually in marriage?
I don't see a lot of Hausa Igbo combination. I don't see that a lot. That's the one I would say I do not see. Yoruba people just find it. Yoruba people everywhere. They are very like this.
Yeah, Yoruba's
They can mix with Hausas easily. They can mix, you see Igbo, Yoruba mixes. But this Hausa Igbo mix, very, very difficult to find. I only know one person personally.
Because of the history. I think it's because of the history, and it's one of those very unsettled matters as well. I don't think Nigeria has done. I don't think us as a people have done really well in just finding closure for that history. There's a lot of denial and sweeping under the carpet. But I can imagine though that it's going to be really hard for me to engage with someone and their entire family and the family. Like, this stuff is big. Marriage is not just like, one person, but like, it can be hard. It can be hard to engage with someone who has basically been your oppressor. And not one that has repented and has moved on. It's one that has we've just stopped talking about it. So Igbos feel a very strong. Obviously my grandmother's from Imo State, so we have strong history to that. I'm not a product of my society in terms of where I'm from, because I didn't grow up here, so I don't carry that burden. But I can't say the same thing for a lot of other families, and some families were hit more than others. But you can still see it every time. I remember Big Brother Niger, maybe last year or 2 years ago, the one where Sheyi Awolowo was in, and I was watching an episode with an Igbo family, lovely people. I'm more Yoruba than anything else, they're not. What I'm saying is that they're not like extremely tribalistic or whatever. But they were having serious issues watching Sheyi on TV, saying that Sheyi's grandfather, Mr. Awolowo, the very famous Awolowo man, had a bad role to play in Biafra war and all of that, and they had they're just really cursing at him and all of that. So people are still very conscious as to what happened, and yeah, it's as good as seeing a German and a Jewish person being together. But I wanted to say something though, that when it comes to tribal differences, when you move away from tribe within a country and then move outside of your country, it gets very different. So I've noticed that the gender play is not as eminent when there are two different racial relationships. Okay, for example, if I'm with an Igbo man now, for example, I think my life will be more infused into the Igbo culture. But when I'm with a white man, maybe it's because they're not really culturally inclined. I feel like they absorb more into ours.
I think that's more. I think cultural inclination has a lot to as in for the guy in America. Yeah, it may not be because America really you can't even really tell if they have culture. You get what I'm saying? Like,
they do.
they're it's pretty universal compared to the ones that people like the Indians, the East Asians, and the Africans live by, compared to Americans. You get what I'm saying?
The honest truth is, a lot of people, I believe, either don't think of it enough or they think of it too much. So I'm also of the opinion that tribal differences, I believe, is a good thing in some way, in the sense that it allows you to be able to learn more about other cultures that are separate from yours. But at the same time, we also are aware of all the other things that actually come when someone you're in a relationship or somebody that you're married to, when you guys are not in the same, when you guys don't come from like the same place, either for your tribe or your race. I believe there's so much more effort that needs to go into the relationship or marriage just because of the fact that you guys are not from the same places. So there's certain things they would even take if you guys were from like the same place, but they will not even entertain it if you're from a different place, just because. And I don't know, maybe that's human nature.
Are you saying that you think that people give more passes, like more free passes, when you're from different cultures?
I believe that when it comes to culture in itself, people tend to give passes when they're from the same culture and you omit it. They will look at you like, oh, you should know better, but it's okay because you're from the same place. But if you're from another place, there's even more emphasis because they believe that, oh, that means you're trying to ignore the identity, as opposed to a case of, oh, I don't even know what is
Crazy, 'cause
required.
I experienced the complete opposite. That's what the complete opposite. Like, I feel like when you don't know each other, that's happened to me because I've never actually been with people in the same culture as mine. There's a lot more slack that goes on. For example, now I hate the kitchen. I fucking hate it. Like, I hate it like mad. There's no reason. There's nothing that will make me be in that kitchen every day, right? So I'm not naturally like homey or whatever. And most of the time, I feel like people get away with. I get away with that because I'm not from their culture. So you hear people, even without me saying anything, they'll say things like, it's because they're not an Igbo girl. I'm like, yeah, that's why. Or it's because they're not, they let it go because they're like, if you were from my tribe or if you were from my place, then you would definitely be you definitely
Okay, so you're saying the expectation is usually more
they have
from
no
your experience.
expectations because they don't know who I am or where I'm from or my how I was raised. So I'll say things like that as well. And I think communication. Okay, this is my personal experience. Communication is a lot better as well because we're not working on assumptions. So that's why I said I thought you said the opposite. If I'm with a Yoruba person now and my auntie comes in and they don't say hello, I'll be like, what's wrong with you? You know, see that, my auntie. But if the person is not Yoruba, I know this is a bias, but I will say, oh, you're supposed to say hello. I don't know if you get what I mean. Like, I'll be like, oh, yeah. And even them, I'll say, auntie, sorry, she's French or she's Igbo or Hausa or whatever. That's why she didn't say that.
So you will not greet because you're not from.
No, that's a poor. That's a poor example. It's a very poor example. But I'm just saying that I find that they don't give assumptions. You don't assume because you don't really know that person. Like if I'm going to be with an Hausa man, for example, I've never been with one. And I have no idea. I feel like I'll just be giving him passes. Like if he doesn't do anything, I'll say, oh, is that how you would do? Because I'm kind of like, I want to learn how he does things because I have no idea. And I think it would be the same.
So I guess I'm coming from a point of view of when something goes wrong.
Right.
So a lot of, because I find that a lot of the times, yes, I get you in terms of what you're saying, where there's a lot of passes, but those are for like inconsequential things. When maybe something happens something big happens and it's a case of, oh, let's go to try and resolve it, or let's go try and reconcile two parties, or let's even talk about what happened. I tend to find that if the person, like if two people, maybe two Igbo people, are having issues and then they're trying to resolve it, a lot of the times they'll be like, don't mind her, it's because she's, you understand, she's just being a naughty girl, don't mind her. That from that standpoint. But
Right.
if it was a Yoruba girl and an Igbo guy, and then it's because that's how Yoruba people are. That is so that's the point of view that I was actually coming from, where they will now be like, no, that's how they are.
That's so
because
true. Yeah.
if they're the same tribe, you can't say that's how they are. That's who you are as well. But if it's a separate tribe, they tend to now say, don't mind them. This is not
But we always do that. We always blame the differences for the issue. Like say, it's because he's young, or it's because he's a woman. I hate that when we're driving as well. Peter does that as well. Say, that women cannot drive, but a man could have done the very same thing. And if it was a man that was there, you will not find another excuse and say,
we are pretty much a misogynistic society. Take for example, if someone is driving badly on the road, if the person is not moving down full, and the person is driving sluggishly or drives near, you just say, leave her, Naoma. I've seen it a lot of times.
Nope.
He even began to rub off on me. One time, someone was moving sluggishly on the road. I had to cut and move. I said, leave her, Naoma. So,
you guys are killing me. Anyway, Shasha. So I don't think it's going away anytime soon. I think no matter how modern and modernized we get, I don't think the whole tribal thing is going to go, partly because of unresolved issues that we are not talking about, as you rightfully said, and just prejudices that will never go away. So
Inherent.
we'll just have to live like that, and then you and your own partner, you find out you make it work within yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's the best bet.
good luck to Harry and Meghan as well. All the best to them.
They really need it.
We're cheering for them.
Yes, because I believe that what he did is extremely brave.
Extremely.
And not a lot of men can do that.
No.
So
No.
they're like, Meghan has a good,
good man.
she has one of
Man
the
would be
best
very
men
proud.
there are
Yeah,
out there.
absolutely. And if you don't like that, you can suck my dick. I'm kidding.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. We'll talk. We'll see you next episode, yeah? All right, take care.